All right, we should be recording.
It's important for everyone to have a mentor, and in Toastmasters, we are assigned a mentor, at least in our club. The purpose of this project is to talk about mentorship in general, but also to demonstrate a role of a mentor of some of the examples of when I was a protege. So what I want to talk today about is to share some information about 3 mentors that I had, influence they had on me, and give some examples of how I used what I learned from them in my life.
And 1 second, maybe if everyone could go on mute just for Oksana's speech to make sure we don't get any feedback or echoes. Thank you.
The first mentor I want to talk about, his name is Vadim Zeland. He's not a typical face-to-face mentor. When you think about mentorship, is you can imagine continuous feedback, face-to-face or phone meetings, conversations about things you're doing, and continuous feedback about those things and path correcting of your current activity. He is not a mentor in a common sense like that. He was just writing his books and I was reading them. He's the author of Transurfing of Reality, but he had such a huge influence in my life that I just must talk about him, maybe even more than some of the face-to-face mentors I had over the years. He brings a lot of different concepts in his philosophy, and I've talked about him at least once, so maybe you remember a little bit, but the main concept that I picked up and I'm using is the what versus how, meaning that when you are working on a goal, on the what, concentrate on the what and not about on how to get there. Unless it's something super simple, then you don't really need to concentrate it because it is so super simple. You don't need to plan of how to get there. For example, you need to go get the mail from the mailbox. You don't need to come up with a plan of how you're going to walk from your house to the mailbox. If the goal is fuzzy, that's what you should concentrate on and not on the how. The reason being is that you actually can constrain yourself out of your goal when you concentrate on the how too much, because the how can come in a way that you cannot imagine yet. And when you start planning for it, you might be actually detrimental to your goal. Just to show you an example of what it actually means and how do I apply it, I'm going to demonstrate it on an example of my current job. So the job that I'm in right now, I've been in it for a year and a half. I was looking for a job because my previous org was completely disbanded, so I didn't have a job. I had a couple of months to find a new one, and that's what I did. So when I was looking for this job, I had a few must-haves of what is the most important things for me in this job. I wanted to stay employed as an HP employee. I wanted to be in a project management role, continue there. I wanted to work on very specific type of projects, large scale that impact big organization, part of the organization, the whole organization, and them to be cross-functional. And I wanted to have a promotion, one level up. So these were my must-haves. Mind you, I was losing a job. Most of the in this situation mentality is I just need to get any job, whatever job comes my way. That's kind of was what I was gravitating towards, but then I just stuck with, okay, what I really want to do, what will really make me happy, this will. So I was just focusing on that. And at one time I had a conversation with the manager. I approached him, said that so-and-so, my org has been disbanded, which he knew very well about. Do you have any positions or will open soon in your org that I could be a good fit for? And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I pulled my laundry list. Here's what I want to do. And he's like, except for the promotion, because he didn't really need to know that. And he said, oh, I actually know a manager who is looking for something like this. So why don't you approach her? Which I did, and I got this job, and I was not only extremely happy, and not only I got all the must-have I wanted to have, I also got all of the nice things to have I wanted. I wanted to be employed by Aruba, but not by any org, like some teams I didn't want to go to. I wanted to have a female manager so that she's a role model for me. I wanted to be my manager in a different location, not my location, to have some space. And I wanted a pay raise, which was like such a stretch goal. And I got all of it. And I got all of it without really even working too hard on it. All I did was define very, very clearly what my goal is in my head, and then it projected to whoever I talked to. So Vadim Zeland, mentor number one. Mentor number two, Professor Karlov. He was my violin professor in musical college back in Kazakhstan. He wasn't very affable, but he was somewhat laughable. He was very hard to approach, but sometimes would come up with super funny, sarcastic jokes. And what I learned from him wasn't violin techniques, which I did learn as well, but what I remember the most about him is his mentality about the teachers versus students. He was saying that there are no bad students, but bad teachers, only bad students. Meaning that, yes, teachers can be good or better or worse, but from any teacher, you can learn some things still, even if they're horrible, even if they don't even want to teach you, you still can learn stuff from them. If you're a good student, you just need to pay attention. And just an example, a job at ADT. I had a manager there that made my life completely miserable. She was a micromanager. She would stand over my shoulder and see if I do work or I do things like type a personal email to a friend. She called me once and that was horrible. She did things like she would keep a tally of how many times you were late. And late was 2 minutes or more after 8 a.m. Then you're late. If you're late more than 3 times, you are on probation. If you're late a couple of times more after that, then you are fired. But I still learned a few things from her. For example, she was a meticulous organizer. Her organization skills could probably be only outmatched by everybody I know in my life. Philip, maybe he has more meticulous organization skills than even her, but I learned a great deal from her. I learned that your boss is not the limit. There is also your boss's boss, and there is your boss's boss's boss, which if you build good relationships with and they are better managers than your not so good manager, it could lead to a very good opportunity in the future, which in my case happened. And I got a really good promotion through my boss's boss. And I also learned what kind of managers I want to stay away from. So that's just one example of Professor Skarlov's teaching and mentorship. And the last mentor I want to talk about, she's my current manager, Magda Swat. That's the thing she taught me the most. Imagine you are already there. She's actually my real mentor in terms of what mentors are supposed to be. Talk to you regularly, review your progress towards your goal, and course correct if they see there is some kind of opportunity for that. And that is a very continuous feedback. So I'll go a little bit further into details what it is. Imagine you're already there. But some of the mentorship style of her, I just want to quickly touch on that. Some are good, some are not so good. For example, immediate feedback is great, but sometimes she would give it while you're presenting in front of the people you're presenting. And if the feedback is not so good, doesn't feel so great, even though you later understand, yeah, that was useful, but not pleasant. Very high pace, which means sometimes she asked me to do stuff in half an hour that should take realistically a couple of weeks, and extremely demanding. But Immediate feedback is also great because I don't waste hours and day going in the wrong direction. I waste 10 minutes and then she says, no, 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 this is what I want. And then you start going to the direction that you need to go to. High pace also means quick decisions. Okay, this isn't working. Okay, let's try it that way. And now I have a real career development plan. So that's, imagine you're already there, going back to that phrase. So when we talked about my career development, which was I was less than a year in my job. And when we talked, she said, what do you want to do after this job? And I was barely trying to stay afloat in my current job. I was barely getting used to responsibilities and knowing the org and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. And she said, okay, well, we have 2 levels of roles in my org. One is yours and the other one is one way up. So logically you could progress towards that. So one of the way to do that is imagine you are already in that role. Imagine you want to be a VP of sales operations, let's say. What challenges do you have? What is it that you need to do? What is it that you have no idea about what you need to do and you need to learn that? Imagine you are already there. Imagine you're already in that position. What are you missing? What do you work on? And when I imagine myself in that situation in the role of the next level up, I understood that I know very little about how they operate. So I asked to be paired up with someone in that position to work very, very closely so that I observe and learn real time, like how they do stuff. I know what they do, but I don't know the how. So that's what I'm learning at the moment. And the great thing is that I don't know if I want to go one level up in the org, but it doesn't matter. When you are learning something and you work towards something, whatever you learned can be used in your future career, in your future life, in many, many other areas. And the truth is, sometimes you don't even know where you're going to go, but whatever you learn will be useful. So just start going somewhere, and wherever you end up, the path that you walked will be used, and you might be halfway there, even if you change your destination. In conclusion, using the principle from these 3 mentors, which were great in my life, and I wish everybody has someone like them or the combination. Here is my next goal. I present to you my next goal. Is the house with the pool. I have no idea how I'm going to go there, but I'm going and I'm going to get there. Thanks.